Matt says, hey, everybody, FIFA will definitely go to another developer like Take-Two or Capcom maybe, or PlayStation. I mean, it sounds like they've already decided and it just hasn't been announced, right? Does anyone...
So I agree. I do agree that it does sound like that, but like FIFA's going to be, it's a risky move for FIFA, right? Because are we really sure that there's a developer out there that's going to say, hey, you know what I really want to do? Spend $300 million to go after literally the most probably rock solid franchise in all of gaming. Like, why would someone do that? And if you're FIFA, you're giving up, you're probably going to have to chip in for development costs, and you're giving up they were literally getting paid like $150 million a year by EA of like pure profit. Like, it just doesn't, this seems like what's cool about this is that someone's going to be right and someone's going to be wrong. Either EA is going to lose their golden goose and it's going to be like a massive blunder by Andrew Wilson, like 100% fireable offense if they lose, the luster of this franchise, or FIFA made a horrible decision and is going to come slinking back to EA into like the next World Cup cycle, which is what I think will happen. And EA will probably tell them, yeah, we'll take it all license back, but like we're going to pay you like 20% of what we were paying you previously. So like someone is completely right and someone's completely wrong here. Sort of binary.
Who buys FIFA though, right? It's got to be like, I suspect it's pretty seasonal, right? A lot of it is Christmas gifts, things like that. And a lot of it's parents buying it for their kids. I have a funny feeling the brand carries more weight here than we're giving it credit, right? It's still a $60 box game that the parents, I don't know what percentage is, but my guess is it's at least 25, 30% at least that will buy it just because it's, hey, I know my kid plays FIFA. I'm going to buy them the next FIFA. Let me just get caught up here, guys. I'm so behind. Chris says, even the Tecmo Bowl game sold better when it had the real players in real league back in the day. And Chris, I think your point's the right one here. If EA can't get the player names somehow or the teams, I mean, no one's going to play that game. No one, right? Like, you're just not going to. That's why people play the game, I think. Wen Geely says, they lost so much IP in sports game mechanics. It's the long history. EA... PES, by the way, is Pro Evolution Soccer. For those who don't recognize this, it was Konami's, I guess, soccer game. It's a long history. EA PES has that it's going to be hard to compete with. FIFA will all be about execution, and if they can, but it sounds like there's not many studios with the chops to do it. So likelihood of failure is high. To your comment last week, there's a reason Football Manager succeeded over Champ Manager even after losing the brand Champ Manager. The manager piece though feels like it's not the same because the names don't matter as much. Maybe you're right. The FIFA, I mean, everyone agrees here. I think FIFA's going to live or die by the execution of this game. But does anyone think that bar is super high? So high that they can't find a studio, to Wen's point here, with the chops to do it. I'm quoting directly. There's a lot of studios. Probably
a lot of studios. Again, they're going to put out a decent game. It's just mechanically, it's not going to feel like what this loyal fan base is used to in terms of how responsive the players are, how the physics of the game are with the slide tackling and the ball trajectory. It's going to feel like a different game. Some people are going to love it. Some people are going to want to play the mechanics that they're familiar with. It's a similar argument whenever Madden or any of these games update their engines, right? And a lot of people hate it, but they don't have any other option. The only difference is now there's going to be a competitor and they'll be able to choose. And like Jeff said, some of us here are going to be wrong. Some of us are going to be right. And, I don't know if there's a way to predict it, honestly.
Look, I can't speak to FIFA, but I did play a lot of the NHL games. And it was like, for many years, it felt like the only improvement year over year was like they changed the music in the intro and the player faces were a little bit more realistic, right? It looked more like the actual player. And that was pretty much it. And for the most part, the game played exactly the same. I suspect soccer is pretty much the same way, and that most of the physics in the engines have been figured out. Matt says, making a soccer game is hard because devs won't stop tinkering with them. It's the same problem with 2K, Madden, NHL, etc. Yeah, I don't think that stops FIFA from making a good game, though. Mechanics are pretty hard. They have tricks, attributes, tactics, I guess. Football Manager, it's like a full spreadsheet simulator with metrics they hold. Assume EA has that data already or similar. True, but I'm assuming data like that would still belong to FIFA. I don't know if you guys like actual player data.
I don't think so.
You think that's third party collected?
Yeah. Or no, I think EA comes up with player data.
Okay.
Yeah, as I understand, they're going to have all the teams and all the players. They just won't have the name FIFA, and they might not be able to say this is the World Cup. They actually may even have the international teams. That's the only thing where I'm on the fence because a lot of people do love playing with the international teams, and if you can't play with those teams, I could see that being problematic. But if it's the only change is it doesn't say this is the FIFA World Cup, it just says you're playing with Spain versus Italy. Like who cares?
Right.
Players' names are still. If that's the case, then I definitely am like there's gonna be no effect. Outside of maybe some people's parents buying them the wrong game, I think that's actually a fairly valid point, Paul, because I think people just have that name in mind. But yeah, no, I wouldn't be too. EA, I'm sure, did a lot of research before making.
They'll find another way, I think, Jeff, also to market those matches, international or whatnot, that's apart from FIFA. They'll just come up with new creative titles. To me, the big issue is licensing, right? Like, and also proprietary, just ownership of these digital rights, these digital creations, the ratings of the players, the dance celebrations that they record in studio that take hours to do for these teams. I'm not sure how the licensing goes with regard to like putting the players' names on the jerseys, which I think is different than the player data you guys were talking about. So, all these technicalities, I think, depending on who they pay for those rights. But again, EA is way ahead because they have the celebrations, they have the engine already, they have rankings for these players that they update every year for thousands, of people on roster. Not to say it can't be done, but it's a very large effort, especially if you're talking to a new studio to create a new game and that has to do it from scratch.
Let me just get caught up here, guys. Han says Konami would be a decent substitute. Yeah, I mean, people have mentioned PES here like multiple times. Konami could definitely do it and has the chops to do it. They have the experience, assuming the people who develop PES are still around. Antonio says, I'd be interested in what Konami could do. Everyone, I think Konami is maybe one of the more obvious ones. Adam says, hello, everyone joining late, but happy to be here. Adam, welcome. Chris says, tinfoil hat. There you go. Tinfoil hat for Chris. FIFA's making a mobile game for that international audience. We don't even care about soccer. I mean, that is an interesting one. Who thinks this may be
great
mobile only? Lindsay.
Oh, I mean, that's going to be so huge with the South American audiences. I think this is a great theory. I think that FIFA could do a lot with a mobile game. I don't know that it necessarily directly competes with any console game, and EA might still see some traction in terms of its console sales for the people that are really used to playing and streaming and watching streamers, whatever. But I think that the mobile could certainly, like, there's a lot of markets where I could see a mobile FIFA game being super successful. So this is a great theory. I would be pumped to see that.
I mean, mobile would make sense. Like, there is a FIFA mobile game. EA would probably, I'm sure they'll rebrand it as well. Like, I don't know if it ever was really that successful. Like, it never caught on as much. Probably just bad execution though. So that could be an interesting opening. Certainly would be a lot easier to develop. So maybe that's their kind of first foray.
Matt says, what about just the teams, not the players? That was the case with the old college football games, Matt. I think Jeff touched on that, especially like country international stuff, probably no issue. Johan says, I wonder what effect a FIFA partnership will have on Konami's PES in terms of new market share. That should give us the value of FIFA's partnership. And I think right now that's hard to judge. I mean, because Johan, you think it'll steal market share? It will. Like, what's the, like, is the thinking that, assuming FIFA's not doing it with Konami, right? Which we don't know. It could be that the bigger loser is PES or the bigger loser is EA football, FC, whatever they're calling it. Right? Because when was the last installment of PES?
I think they made one, might be a yearly title. The last one was terrible. Apparently it was like,
yeah, they did one in 2020. They did
like
one
horribly rated.
Yeah, they did one last year. So, I mean, is the assumption here, Johan, that you think PES will be a bigger loser in terms of market share, versus an EA that it'll cannibalize. I mean, if Konami's smart, this is they should be the partner, right? Because if they're not, potentially they're the bigger loser than EA is.
Right, because they fall the third. Yeah.
Yeah. Han says FIFA feeds the player ratings seasons by seasons. Diehard club fans will be rooting for their player rating going up. Yeah. That answers the question on player ratings. Chris says, fun fact, when PES lost the licensing, EA poached a lot of the Konami designers. Same thing can happen the other way. Konami definitely has a lot to gain. I just looked at the Metacritic score for their last year's installment is 25 out of 100. So not a very good game, but maybe slapping FIFA branding on top of it fixes it.